So, hi and welcome back to Haunted Hearsay. I'm Caroline and I'm in Donegal, and I have Ben with me. He's in Dublin. Hi,
Hello.
Ben.
Hi.
We're
How you
still in
doing?
lockdown, and I don't think we've done very much since Tuesday, to be honest. Well,
No.
as you know, I joined Twitter recently, several weeks ago, so I could hook up with other haunted sites and paranormal sites. And America has so many of them. And so I went on Twitter and I started following a few of the sites, and they've all very kindly responded, thanking me for following them and showing
Very
me
good.
other things that they've got going, which is brilliant. But one in particular, ghostnation.net, they have books out, they have audio, they have, investigations out. They've been around for a while. So Brian, that's with them, messaged me and got chatting and said that he might have some places that stories that he could refer us to in the States,
Mhm.
which I think is brilliant. So he sent me his email. I'm going to pass that on to you, Ben, and you'll set that up, and
Yeah.
hopefully we'll have him sometime next week or something for a Zoom, and we'll get a different perspective from here.
Hmm.
They're definitely doing it a bit longer than us over there, that's for sure. But tonight,
That's good.
we're going to cover something that you put up before, but we haven't really gone into it. And
And
it's
we've meant to go into it, but we didn't
yeah,
really.
we've been saying it quite a few times. It's the 10 most haunted, it's the 10 top most haunted spots in Ireland.
Yeah, top
So
10 most haunted houses, I think.
yeah, well, do you know something? I was looking at it and thinking, I think it's
Places.
a few more.
Oh,
So
there's definitely I was going to say it's actually you can't do a list and it not be controversial. So
that's
we
it.
just tried to put some together that were some I've been to, some I haven't even been to. But we just wanted a mix from around the country.
Yes. And just to go into them a little bit, now I've not been to any of them. This is definitely on you. But there was one, I was looking at the one in Inver in Donegal, that house in
You've been
Donegal
to
was,
Rutland Island.
but we'll get back to Rutland Island in a second. What
Mm.
I liked about this one in Inver is that they claim it's the most haunted house in Europe. The amount of
I will
sightings.
say there's a lot of claiming going on, like Loftus Hall, which is the last one on the list here, also claims that
Is
that's the
Loftus Hall the one that down the bottom of the
most
country
haunted in the world. Yeah, it's
that had the ghost adventurers
all
and most
it's the
haunted
famous
homes?
one. It was the one that was for
Yeah,
sale.
that's the one that had the devil appear in the house,
Mm.
and usually anything to do with that. Well, I think this in Inver, there it's something demonic that they claim is there. They claim there's a man in a white suit or something that walks around the house, and there's something else. But it was the
Yeah.
reference to something demonic and the fact that there's a lot of poltergeist activity.
So the first one,
I wear my glasses, I'll see better.
okay, the first one's the Hellfire Club.
Before you go into this, I was reading a little bit about this,
Yeah.
and it doesn't mention who the degenerate person was that took it over, the one that was barred from every other club in
Yeah.
Dublin. Do
Do you
you know
know?
who it was?
I don't personally. Do you know? I would. I've been to the Hellfire Club. I've taken some amazing photographs. I've watched a ton of people doing ghost adventures up there. Um,
There's even
but
something in that.
the history is so dense that I haven't actually gone into it all. So it's always been on my list. I have a close friend who's going to hopefully write a film about.
I was quite surprised when I was reading that. I was quite surprised I was reading it that it was this gentleman that had been barred from every establishment in Dublin for
Mm,
his outrageous behavior, bought the Hellfire Club and turned it into this sort of misogynistic, hedonistic free for all, from
yeah,
everything from illegal drinking to illegal gambling to
orgies,
satanic, yeah, to satanic
satanic things.
worship.
Yeah.
That kind of threw me a bit. I thought, was that a sort of like a fight back at society, especially in Ireland at the time, which would have been very much church run country.
I know we're saying this a lot, but actually next time you're down, we should go or try and go up there because it's in
Where
Dublin. Like
exactly is it in Dublin?
it's up in the hills. It's like quite far, like you feel like you're in the countryside, but you can see the city.
Yeah,
Um,
actually, well, once this pandemic is over, once lockdown is lifted, we've got so many places to
so
go.
many places, but
But
this is a good one.
you've been to the Hellfire Club, so you can tell me a wee bit more
It's
about
just
it.
really a shell of a building, but it has very dark energy to it, to be honest.
So it was out of the road, away from places as well. So this is
Yeah,
where the
you have to go through kind of foresty thing, a place to get to it, and
and what year was it opened?
built in 1725 as a hunting lodge.
Now he didn't build it. The guy that turned it into the Hellfire, he didn't build it. He bought it, didn't he?
William Connolly bought it, built it, and he was the Speaker of the Irish House of Commons.
Yeah. So this other guy wasn't. It's not that, not to get him mixed up with him. The other guy wasn't William Connolly.
No, no, this is
But do we
afterwards.
know
Yeah,
the name of the guy that opened it as the Hellfire Club?
I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
sure
funny.
we could.
I was looking and I didn't come across it myself. I was just, and I thought, well, maybe you might know.
No, unfortunately not. But I think we could definitely keep looking. And we
When
might.
was it closed down?
I don't know that either. Like it's been like for my whole life, it's been this kind of like weird place that you just.
Heard of, etc.
Yeah, and there was actually a. I was gonna say a murder, but it wasn't a murder. It was not so long ago. Like I'm talking 2 or 3 years ago. Well, maybe a bit longer. Maybe like 2016. I'd have to double check. There were three young people, like either late teens or early 20s, camping there, and essentially one of them had their throat slit by a madman.
No.
Yeah, like that's like you can Google that and it's everywhere.
And,
It's
and
like
was the person ever caught?
I think so. I think they got caught, but they
Did
were
did the kids survive
the
or?
kid survived. That's
Oh,
and he was with his girlfriend and another person, and the other person ran away, and the girlfriend stayed, but she didn't get hurt, I don't think, or she didn't get like that hurt. And then this guy, and the guy was like a camper, and he like, sorry, they were camping, and he like arrived at their campsite and was um, like befriended them first, and then slit the guy's throat.
oh my God Almighty! Do you think was he influenced by the actual place,
That's
or
always a theory. Well,
yeah,
we're on the topic of haunted hellfire clubs, maybe.
yeah?
Like, or like, there's what reason do you have to be up there? There's no reason. It's a shell of a building. You can see it in
And
the
you
picture.
don't go up there hunting for people, so you wouldn't expect. I mean, he certainly couldn't
No,
have.
I wouldn't camp there personally ever. It's terrifying.
Yeah,
Like,
but I
but
couldn't imagine somebody setting out, going like, "I'm going to go out and see is there anyone camping here, and I'm going to do somebody no good."
it's not somewhere you'd expect somewhere to camp.
Yeah.
So the person that was there for weird reasons, but
Wow.
not
Now
great.
that's pretty dark.
Yeah.
I'm going to move on now to number nine. What's number nine?
Number 9 is Wicklow Jail.
We both know a bit about Wicklow Jail.
Yeah, so I went here before as well, but a few times. Um, it's in Wicklow town, and funny thing about Wicklow Jail is that unfortunately they haven't really the like mannequins and stuff they have are a bit outdated, and the place looks a bit tacky and funny now. And I think they could, if they had a few quid, they could do it up and
They don't have it open to visitors anymore, do they?
but not for COVID anyway. But
Yeah, so Wicklow Jail, was there any famous people that spent their last days here in Wicklow Jail?
I don't know. That's not something I know. I just know that it's another place that has like just a severe reputation for being really haunted, and people have stayed there, and the spirits that are there because of terrible things that have happened to them.
Well, the prisoners, like in Wicklow Jail as well as Kilmainham Jail, were brutalized.
Brutal.
That's the way
Yeah.
you can describe it. They were treated so badly. They were tortured on a daily basis.
It's like
Yeah, the
18,
entertainment of the occupied forces at the time.
it's the 1843.
So places like Wicklow Jail and Kilmainham, there were harsh, harsh environments. And the prisoners weren't fed. Their families brought them in food.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and well, especially I don't know back then as well. Who was being imprisoned? Was it Irishman or Englishman?
In Wicklow jail, it would have been Irishmen.
Yeah,
It would 100% been Irishmen. They wouldn't have put an Englishman in an Irish jail.
no.
They probably would have sent him back to England for, if they did something, but they certainly wouldn't have put one in an Irish jail. If I'm wrong, please somebody feel free to correct me.
Anyway, Wicklow Jail is a jail where bad shit happened. So people probably today, if you want to go in, it feels like a tacky museum with scary looking mannequins, but scary in the wrong way. They're just
Right. They
they just
haven't even made an effort.
no, they look like shop mannequins a bit. But maybe it's different now, but I doubt it. I don't even know
So
if
that's number 8 on the number 9.
those
So
number 9. So
8.
the next two I'm gonna probably do together because one I don't have much to say about, and that's Lep or Leap. I think it's Lep Castle in County Offaly. And then down the road from that one is Charleville Castle, which is a much better, well-known castle. But Lep Castle is privately owned. It's owned by a family called the Ryans. I've never been there. A friend of mine went and had a look when he was on a TV show, but that's about it.
That's
So I don't
right.
really know that much about it. I think there's ghosts basically. It's quite active and it's a family home, and it's an interesting spectacle. But Charleville,
Charleville Castle, we can go and stay in Charleville Castle, can't we?
no, we can stay in Kinsey Castle, which is the third one in this trinity of castles that are haunted in Offaly, because Kinsey is a hotel. Lep is privately owned, and then Charleville is privately owned, but they do events and stuff. They used to run a music festival called Castle Palooza. I was in there as a film crew on something. I know
You've been to Charleville Castle.
they do ghost tours and stuff, but I actually have a. So I'll tell you my whole experience because it's ghostly. We had a number of things that happened to us. We were all in a kind of believing believing mood while we were there, but you couldn't not believe because actually stuff was happening before our eyes. So that was kind of very unexplainable. So the
Okay.
first thing is I got a blinding headache the second I walked into the castle. And I stayed in because I was working. I couldn't leave, and then I couldn't hack it, and I had to leave. Um, but some of the things that I witnessed while I was in there was our batteries drained from our cameras.
Is
Um,
it a haunted thing you were doing, or was it just something you were working
yes,
on?
it was haunted themed, but we were being given a tour and being told about by a medium was bringing us around and showing us there's a room that's on ley lines apparently, and the tiles on the floor are even like pointing towards the line of the ley lines. It's in this tower actually. Do you see the tower on the right? This turret. Um,
And were
so
you there during the day, or was it at night, or
daytime.
and things were happening? It was active during the day.
So yeah, well, those two things happened. Then there was an incident where we were asked to touch the leg of the lady that was bringing us around because there was a spirit at her leg, and it was freezing cold, and then her other leg was warm. Like she was like, "Just touch my leg, you'll see this is freezing." And we touched it, and it was absolutely freezing. And her other leg was normal body temperature. Do you know what I mean? There's another thing. Someone felt the spirit of like a dog on their leg as well. Um, then we were brought to the room where they did a lot of witchcraft, which is that room where on the ley lines it was like used. And then there
Back
was
to the ley lines again. There's definitely something to it.
yeah,
But
they purposely built this room
yeah.
on this energy field to do dark magic, basically.
So who built Charleville Castle?
I think it's the Fitzpatricks, who are a formidable bunch of people.
And were they the ones that were into witchcraft?
Yeah, at some point, someone in the family at some point uh, was, but that didn't feature that much other than because there was a lot of other things. Like there's the spirit of a child that died. I think she fell off the stairs, and um, people come to they leave her toys and stuff.
Oh, right. That's a bit like those kids in the underground catacombs in Edinburgh,
Yeah,
where there's children and they take down like toys and leave them, and
for
they'll see toys moving and things like that then
I
afterward.
went to the catacombs in Edinburgh actually.
Yeah.
They were creepy. But anyway, yeah, Charleville, it's definitely very active. I didn't have a very comfortable experience there. But I mean, people they do music festivals there. People do daytime yoga inside the haunted room. Like so. I'm sure those people. I personally won't go back. That's
Yeah. See, but I mean, something that has such a negative energy, you would
yeah.
wonder.
Where monks were murdered by this I thought it was a Fitzpatrick or the Fitzgeralds, but I think it's Fitzpatrick family.
And is this far from Leap Castle?
No, I think there maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes. I think maybe half an hour at most.
Wow.
Um,
I wonder the ley lines, I mean, you're going to mention a third place now in a minute, and the fact that this whole area, I wonder, are they built on the ley lines, all three castles?
Maybe it depends what the people who built them were into, I suppose. Kinnetty Castle is the hotel one, and that's
That's the one we're planning to go to, isn't it?
yeah, it's like all big, dark, scary. It's not that scary, but it's fancy, old worldy, if you know what I mean.
Charleville looks pretty dark and gothic, doesn't it?
Yeah, they all have a vibe. I'll tell you that for free. So when we go, it's not going to be like you're definitely going to pick up on things for sure. Even like in the
Well,
hotel.
I mean, I'm looking at the pictures and I can see various things, but as you say, I can't say for definite that that's what I'm seeing because it could be anomalies in the actual
Yeah,
pictures.
we
So
should look at
what's
some
the other one in Offaly then? The hotel?
Kinnetty Castle.
Kennedy, do you have a picture of Kennedy there?
It did,
Well, Kennedy Castle is definitely on the list for us
I'll
to
put one
visit.
up on the screen, but
Yeah.
it's a hotel, pretty small. I think I haven't been there, but it was where they shot the show that Anthony was in.
So Anthony done all three of these castles, didn't he?
He did, yeah.
Yeah. And he found Leap Castle to be very haunted.
I think they just had a look at Leaf Castle, so we're kind of going on the owner's word for that one. He was with me when we did Charleville Castle, and then he also did Charleville for the TV show he was on, and then Kinnetty is the hotel that he stayed in during the TV show,
Right.
and the three castles they all featured in the show, but we've both been to Charleville together separately to the TV show.
We need to see who we can get to fund us to go and do another one then down and get into Leap Castle as well.
Mm-hmm.
So what is next on our list?
We were talking about it quickly earlier, the Drumbeg Manor in Inver.
Yeah, I was getting it mixed up with the house in Newton Stewart or Newton Cunningham. I'm not sure. It's between and funny the house is not unlike that. That's why whenever I had just glanced at that the first time, I was like, oh, I know that place. I don't, but it's a similar building to it. And
Yeah,
it's between Letterkenny and Derry. But again, before I start saying I'll tell you which house it is, I better find out a wee bit more about it, like because I think there's people living there, and I know that there's a bit of a turnover of people there. There was people living there for a long time who lived quite happily with their ghosts,
yeah,
used to them, and they didn't really mind them. But I think someone else moved in afterwards, and
they're spooked.
really freaked out at the fact that there was actually things happening in the house,
Yeah,
and
I'd
couldn't see.
I'd be a bit on the spooked side, even though I know Well, the next one, we'll move on. We don't know a huge amount about Drumbeg, but I think what we should do is we should commit to everyone that we will actually go there, because
Yes, definitely. It's definitely on our. Well, Drumbeg is the one I was telling you about, the gentleman that walks around in the white suit. And I think there was other poltergeist activity. But Drumbeg, that's the one that lays claim to being the most haunted house in Europe. But I suppose everyone claims their place is the
that's
most
what
haunted.
we're gonna say.
So
So
that's number 5.
number 5, we have Rutland Island.
Yay!
So this is Rutland Island, a picture of the street. These houses were originally built in the 1780s, I think.
Well, I know the street's called Duke Street, and whenever the people that lived there then would take the wee boat up into Dunlow for their socialising. And when they used to go up in there, the Dunlow boys used to call them the Duck Street boys to annoy them, because it was Duke Street, and they'd be like, no, that's the Duck Street boys coming. And Duck Street stuck, and now it's known as Duck Street. You know this because you use the houses at the end of it, obviously.
Originally,
it was yeah. Now,
Harry.
the house is on the right. Sorry, I'm interrupting again. The house is on the right. The houses on the left are nearly all holiday homes now at this stage. Year 2 is the last 2, isn't it, on the left? On the right, now they've done a bit of work on some of them, but they were all empty. The schoolhouse is down the middle, wasn't it?
When I was growing up, when I was up until a young teenager, probably, they were all empty, derelict.
I can remember going out there when I knew your uncle, and you were only about three or 4 at the time. I remember you were only toddlers. I remember that much. You wouldn't have been up as often then. Well, you had been up in the summer, but I can remember being out, and the schoolhouse, there were still desks in the school, and there was no roof on the place, but there were still desks, and there was still a chalkboard, and you know, it was the houses still had furniture, still had old lace curtains dangling in bits off the windows and things like that. I mean, it's lovely to see. That's on the left-hand side of the street. The right-hand side.
So there was a brother and sister who left our house in the 1960s, and when they left, they were the only 2 people living on the island.
Anyone watching this, that street there was a cobblestone street, and this island was developed in the sort of between the mid 1700s, so late 1700s.
I believe.
Yeah, with a guy called Lord Burton.
Sorry, and then the revolution was 1798.
Or Lord Burton, not Lord Burton. Lord Burton was Burtonport. Lord Rutland.
It is. William.
Yeah, it is St. David. Yeah, he developed it and had houses and buildings put on these islands for the fishing. They had smokehouses, etc. It was for the fishing, but you know, they're not. They wouldn't have been sort of your normal run-of-the-mill Irish home. This was more like an English street, basically.
Yeah, and you know, well, everyone. So these houses were the fishermen's houses.
Yeah,
and then there were the other houses were for different people who had different jobs and different roles in the. It was all they all worked for this man, and this man provided their life. Kind of like he was obviously a landlord, and he was the beneficiary of the place. But then the fishing all died out because they overfished the herring, and then gradually the place became more and more derelict, and the sand took over, which is kind of beautiful and poetic. So half the island's buried under sand, as you know.
There's one village completely buried under sand, and another village half buried that you can see bits of whenever you're going past on the ferry. You can see parts of the building coming up out of the ground. The one completely buried was a wee bit further back, and that was a big storm back in the early 1800s. That started that shift, and I think one village was, you know, had an awful lot of damage done to it. I don't think there was people hurting. I think they were given plenty of warning, but yeah, you can see how then the sort of like the island started to reclaim the other part. I mean, this guy he had developed this island right off the coast of Donegal, and you know, so it would have been a bustling, full place at the time. And yeah, as the fishing dissipated and the people left, but you can see, apart from Duck Street, the other 2 villages, one's completely gone now, the sand is taken over, and the other, it's just the gable ends of buildings coming out of the ground is what's left of that village. Like, so yeah, it is, you know, you can imagine there's a, well, we're not can imagine, we know that there's a lot of spookiness goes on there.
Yeah, it's and we hope again when we can travel that we can do a whole extended show from inside the
Well,
house.
we have to, because as we were talking about Napper Tandy earlier on, this is where Napper Tandy landed with the French.
Yes,
And
go
the
over from the
only
top.
2 British soldiers, I believe, that were on lookout that particular. Anyway, he captured them, and they were forced into drinking with them for the 3 days that they
There
were
were
spent
two,
there.
two. There was a shipwreck where 2 dead bodies were pulled up onto the island as well.
Well, yeah, there's an awful lot, right? There's
Well,
one of Grania Wheels, the pirate queen. One of her ships went down between Rutland and Innisfree. And they're about, what was it, 10 years ago? It was Oscar Duffy, remember, and Liam, God rest his soul. They were diving and they came on the cannons. So whenever they went down then, they were able to recover 2 cannons that were carbon dated back, the most likely Grania Wheels, the pirate queen. So you would have people like that arriving, you know, pirates arriving on the island. You would have had, you know, all sorts coming and going.
it's
You
definitely
know,
got
yeah.
an amazing energy, and it's a beautiful place. And
It is. And as soon as the lockdown is lifted, that is one of the first places we're going to go and do a podcast from, is literally from the end of the street down there in Dock Street, and take people out. And yeah, it's not hard to find the spooky
no.
on Rutland.
So I suppose we'll move on.
Yeah.
Numero 4, Seafield House in Sligo. This came up quite a lot when I was doing some research. I've never been. It was built in 1842. It was the height of luxury until one of the sons brought home an Egyptian mummy from his travels.
Oh.
See, I'm fascinated with Egyptian curses, by the way, if no one knows.
Yes, I know. And I have
So,
a
he apparently this stimulated the interest of a particularly powerful poltergeist that would shake the house and shatter the ornaments. So this is from an article from 2014 in the Irish Times. And I think that's an excerpt actually from a book. It is by Kate Holmquist and Tarquin Blake about Strandhill.
bringing an Egyptian mummy home with you.
Sorry, about Seafield House and the outskirts of Strandhill in Sligo. But yeah, Egyptian mummy.
I know. I mean, instead of like, you know, a stick of rock or a picture,
Just down people, and it was very popular in the 1840s. It
it
was always
was, but it shows you how little disregards that they had for even like, you know, the Egyptians to go in and desecrate a burial place and just say, well, do you know what? I'm having that and I'm taking that back with me. And you're right, there was a lot of that.
there's kind of this recent stuff as well, because I went to America to whatever the big museum in Boston is, and they had a whole Egyptian tomb, and like the walls and the roof, like I was in an Egyptian tomb in Boston, and it was the real tomb. They brought it from Egypt to Boston, and I just thought that was crazy.
Well, they took a bridge from London
I
to
don't mind a bridge.
somewhere in America, didn't they?
There was a thing I saw recently they took as
The
well.
London Bridge or something like that that was sold to someone in America, Texas or somewhere like that. And they took it stone by stone
Yeah, actually, I've heard that before. And
and
like
then rebuilt it over there.
in New
Please.
York, there's also a place that they, for some reason, they were dredging out the Thames or something, and they the Americans took all the dirt and brought it over to New York because they needed dirt. And now there's a whole piece of land that is actually England. Like it
But they
came,
do actually have a famine village in New York as well.
do they?
They do, yeah. I've seen that. I haven't seen that much. I've seen several pictures, and they have like the thatched house, and they have like memorial stones up, and it's in memoriam to the for the famine
Interesting.
that never happened here. It was like, you know, but we're not going to go into that one.
Okay.
That's definitely one. Well, Seafield House now. I wanted to do my homework on this stuff, but I mean, I've told you I'm decluttering this week. I'm getting there. I'm nearly finished. I started on my wee room and I've it nearly all cleared. And as you know, I've been throwing stuff into that wee room for the last 17 years,
Yeah.
thinking I'll sort it out, I'll sort it out. So I genuinely, I thought 2021, how much worse can this year get? I may as well just sort out the wee room. So I'm coming across lots of things that I do want to share, because I had gathered lots of stories years ago on ferries and houses like this. But I would need to sit down and do my homework, because you know yourself, I don't want to spend the rest of the time we have this evening going, oh, what do you call that again? You know, because you know my memory for names. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, see, just to finish up on Seafield, interesting because it has the link to Egypt and poltergeist as well. It wasn't the mummy causing the thing; it was the poltergeist that came from the mummy.
I wonder where the mummy went after that.
Probably to England,
Mm.
1840, maybe. I don't know. Who knows?
I mean, really,
Uh,
what you're just taking is a dead body wrapped in shrouds home with you,
yeah.
as a souvenir.
Well, all again when we come back up to Dublin, we can.
Mm.
There's a mummy. There's a mummified cat on display in Christchurch, and there's a
Really, a mummified cat.
yeah, you can visit it, and then there's the head, or there's mummies under Saint Mitcham Church, and then that's the one that someone stole a head off recently, and
That's right.
then there is the heart of Saint Valentine that I want to show you as well.
Right,
That's
okay.
it.
We
That's
move
it.
on. What's number 4 on our list here?
That's number 4. So we're going on to
Oh,
number
that's
3
number
now.
4. So number 3. Well, we're getting through these good and quickly. You
Cork
just have to look at that.
Lunatic Asylum. I think this came up a lot just on when I was doing some online research. It makes sense again.
When was that closed down, the Cork District Lunatic Asylum?
I don't know when it was closed. I know when it was opened. It was opened in 1798, so that's the same time as the revolution, the first
First
revolution
one.
of Ireland. So 1798, I imagine it closed after the Victorian, like with a lot of them stayed open a lot longer than you'd expect them to.
Well, there's one in Letterkenny. I showed you pictures of. Now they've closed it as a lunatic asylum. It was known as the Donegal District Lunatic Asylum. That was what they were called. Each whatever the area was, and there's a whole section of it that's been closed off. The rest of the old hospital has been utilised into, outpatients, outpatients offices and things like that, in connection with the hospital across the road. But there's a whole area, and I'll send you that picture so you can get it up, of the back that we did speak to people. We're going to go and have a look once the pandemic is up, because apparently there's a whole wing that they've just bricked off the entrance on one side.
Yeah.
For whatever there's varying reasons as to why. A lot of people say it's haunted. A lot of people didn't want to work in that section of the hospital. And
Really?
then it was basically, I don't know whether it was going to be too much maintenance to keep it open. Anyway, they closed off that whole section. So you're talking like a whole wing. And the building is not unlike this building. That's what a lot of the lunatic asylums were built in, the same sort of,
Very.
I don't know, is it Edward, not Ed, what would you call that? Elizabethan?
Yeah. Well, what year did I say it was? I said 1700.
1791.
So yeah, it's Elizabethan, is it? I'm not great with the queens and kings.
Late 1600s. I'm not bad with my royal families. I do know
Georgian.
about the history. Whoever was after that, like Cromwell's time, whatever it is, the place looks really spooky on its own. And the minute you put lunatic asylum, then you know you had tortured souls there while it was opened.
Yeah.
Never mind what
Never
it was like
mind violets.
now that it's closed. Yeah. So
So
yeah.
yeah.
Plus the fact that some of the remedies and the things that they had that they were claiming to see if they could help people. They were basically using people as guinea pigs. And
Yeah.
some of the things that they did in these lunatic asylums, not just here, but across the world, was barbaric.
What is it, electrolysis and all that stuff.
Yeah, but all these sort of sort of drilling holes into the skull and or putting them in freezing cold water and then putting electrodes on them. And I mean, it was just horrendous when you think what was done in the name of medical science or whatever, I mean, because people that were special. They couldn't really speak for themselves. They didn't have a voice. They
Mhm.
were just prime targets for that sort of,
There was
you know,
a epidemic of men getting their wives locked up.
there was, and that was worldwide, and that was right up until the 1940s. So
Mm,
that wasn't as far back as you thought. I
mm,
mean, a wayward woman, that was how they were referred to. If you had a wife that wasn't towing the line and doing what she was told, you could have her committed. And if you got the doctor to agree, you could have them perform a lobotomy.
yeah, and that's horrific.
That's in the last century. So, I mean, it's not even like that's so far back.
Mm,
So, you know, there was tortured souls. And that was the same all over the world. Doctors were experimenting with different things, and it was easier to experiment with live patients. You couldn't do that with normal, healthy people, but you could with people that were consigned or locked away in these lunatic societies, because people did put family members into them and threw away the key as far as they were concerned.
I've heard some pretty mad stories.
About Cork one, or do you know any
Sorry.
about?
There's a big one also in Dublin that we were going to make a film in. And I think it's closed as a hospital now. It's called St. Ita's in Portrane. Looks very similar to this, but it's on a cliff looking out at the sea. And it's huge. It's all red brick and it's terrifying. And it's surrounded by forests. And for a long time, up until it was open up until I think parts of it were open when I was in college. So that's 2000 in the 2000s. And people were,
All of the Letterkenny one was open right up until into the 90s.
yeah,
It's only in the
and people
last
were
20.
like kind of just roam free in the grounds and stuff. And it was,
Yeah.
you might cross.
Now what they did is they closed all these places and just that's it.
That's
A
it.
lot of them are sleeping rough in the streets of Dublin or the streets of Limerick or the streets of Cork, or
Yeah. Yeah.
you know, some lucky few, maybe their families took them back in. But that was done not just here, it was done in England, done in Scotland. They closed the doors of the lunatic asylums, but it didn't get rid of the people that were
They,
challenged, as it were.
they didn't open up proper mental health facilities that were like suitable afterwards to help people then. They just, yeah,
But they did close the horrors that were these lunatic asylums. And
yes.
that's what it was, because they had live patients that they could experiment on, supposedly for their own good, and to help them. But
Mm,
it wasn't, it was to further medical science,
yeah.
and some of the things that they did, some of the things we know for a fact they're catalogued, and it was done universally, not just here, but it was done in different lunatic asylums. And it was just horrible what was done to people,
Mhm.
especially people that were vulnerable and that couldn't or didn't have a voice.
And as we said, the definition of lunatic was very broad.
Yes, exactly. I mean, if
Um,
you were a wayward woman, you could have been, sequestered into one of these places, and no matter what you would have said afterwards, you wouldn't have been given a voice, basically. Anyway, we'll move on from the Cork
move
District.
on
That's
to,
actually giving me a bad vibe, even looking at that place.
yeah, it's nice.
The sadness and the horror is just emanating off it.
So this one's quite elaborate looking. I'd love to go visit it at some
Where's
point.
this?
This is in County Carlow, and by the looks of it, it is like a shell of a building. But I'll just read the little thing. The somber phantom music of an organ or harmonium can be heard emanating from the spooky ruins of this Gothic building built in 1830, which isn't that old for Ireland,
No, no.
and destroyed by fire 100 years later. So that's 1930. The house has been investigated many times by paranormal investigators, um, and TV show Destination Truth. A spectral fox hunt also haunts the grounds, led by hunting obsessed, horn blowing Ducat, who is also often seen. So this is must be the Lord of the Manor, Mr.
Well,
Dust.
obviously, somebody with a lot of money that was able to build something this impressive
That's a
back
fantastic
in the
place.
early 1800s,
Eight.
which is relatively new for, as you say, for Ireland. But I mean, that was still, I mean, look at the size of it. It's just immense.
Wonder who this Ducat fella is.
We'll need to look into that a wee bit more and have. Do you know, this is one I've never heard of before, and it's huge.
Yeah, to be brutally honest, when I did the video, it was really like it's not my top 10. It's like just a
A general
combination
thought.
of a lot of different sources that I found where people were saying, like, I wanted to put in ones like this that have been featured in TV shows because they've done a lot of research behind it, you know.
Well,
This
that's the same with when we get to number one, we'll talk about number one then. All right then. Okay.
we'll do number one now.
I know I'm way ahead of myself. There's only one or two that I know a bit more about.
Here we go.
And
Loftus
this is
Hall.
it.
This is Loftus
Blocked is hot. The reason I know you know more about than me. The reason I know anything about it is I'm a bit of a fan of Ghost Adventurers and Most Haunted, and Most Haunted were there first, and they did it and gathered lots of evidence and came away with, yeah, the place is definitely haunted. Ghost Adventurers were there, and yeah, again catalogued just a whole list of events that happened and things that happened in the place. But this particular place, now the guy that owns it, and he can't get rid of it. I've seen him interviewed, and he's literally, it's like, if you want to come and have a look around the place for the night, yeah, you can. Yeah, you can.
Right.
But yeah, it was something to do with devil worship in this
Yeah.
particular house, and the devil is supposed to have appeared in a room in this house.
Yeah, I have a description of the story. One evening in 1775, a young man was welcomed into this man and woman's mansion during a storm. And the family and the mysterious man are in the games room playing cards. Anne, who is, I think, the daughter of the family, she bent over to pick up a card from the floor and realized that the man's had cloven hooves. This is the story anyway, you know.
But isn't there something with there's scorch marks on the
With
ceiling or something like
fire,
that?
yes. Soon after Anne became mentally ill, this is the girl of the family that saw the thing. Um, she refused to eat and drink food, and then she died. And then the house, there was there was definitely an incident. Now I don't have it in this description now that I see, but there was an incident involved when they saw the devil, that I think there was like a illusion of the house burning down as well, or maybe it burnt down. I'd have to look into that more. But what did you see
Yeah,
about?
a while now since that I read it, and I remember watching the programs that were done about it, and so decided to follow a wee bit more. And it's subsequently every person afterwards has had it, and it's like, oh, you know what? I'm offloading this place because it's not just your ghostly hauntings. It's something really demonic has possessed this house.
Yeah,
And it's almost like this is my place and you are not welcome. And so that's why there's so many people go, and everyone that goes, it doesn't have to be at night. Again, it's like if you want to go in during the day and go up the steps, you stand there for 5 minutes, you're going to either catch something in audio or you're going to get a picture of something.
and it's cheap to buy. If I mean, I don't have 3 million, but it's 2.5 million now. I just
Yeah, I would imagine it'll go down even more, like, you know, because, you know, I mean, it's not, I mean, it's a formidable house. I mean, it's huge, and I've seen pictures of the inside. The staircases are sweeping, they're fabulous. Everything about it is so over the top and just wonderful.
in its glory, it would have been amazing, but
I know, and you can see by what's left of the grounds outside just how fabulous it would have been. But it's just, yeah, it's. I wonder, is that on ley lines as well?
we're checking it out. That's on Hook Peninsula, so it's by the sea.
Because that's the one I remember saying to you after watching Ghost Adventurers. I was like on the phone, right? That's it. That's our next adventure is Loftus Hall. And funny enough, it's been one thing after the other. It's been the pandemic basically since. So
Exactly,
we
yeah.
haven't been able to go.
We've had this unlucky with that, but we decided to just jump into this stuff anyway. Why not?
I know. Well, I know, but once, I mean, that had been just unfortunate because we had planned to be out and about and show people exactly where we're talking about, and this place, and this is that place. As it is, we will get to doing it definitely.
Yeah,
Loved it all, definitely on the cards. We're definitely going back to Offaly. What
definitely
was the
gonna
name of the
stay
house
in.
at the Halloween party in Offaly?
Yes, actually, I was just thinking about that. That's Duro House in Tullamore.
Yeah, you should put up a couple of pictures of
Yeah, we
that because
could.
that was definitely haunted, that
Oh, for
house.
sure. You can tell us the stories again,
Yeah.
really
There
briefly.
was one, literally, we were up on the third floor and it was like yous were doing some sort of presentation, I think, down in the front room, down in the ground floor, but another wing of the house, basically. And I had gone up with this young fella and this girl. I said, come on up and we'll see if we can, get in touch with any ghosts here, any spooks. And they were really up for it. Yeah, definitely. Sure, that's why we're here, etc. And yeah, we went up and went into this room and I remember standing and just very clearly, and in the room, as you know, they're huge, absolutely huge. You're talking like maybe like 50 square feet and things like that. I mean, these rooms were big. And I remember shouting, is there anybody there? Now it could have been coincidental, but there was a knock. The minute we said it, there was a knock right back. And I remember thinking, oh, thank you. The two beside me, fuck that. And we're out the place like bullets. And I was like, that's okay. We just wanted to say hello because I mean, I wasn't half as brave standing on my own. By
Yeah,
the time I'd even looked, they were already down like 2 flights of stairs, and I'm standing at the top, shuffling out, going, "Thank you, it's okay. I don't want to hear anymore." But
another amazing.
I did have another incident down in the basement as well.
I was there, or was this another time?
I was down a few times. Do you remember there was a couple of people wanted me to come down with them and
I
have a
wouldn't
look?
go down alone anyway. I myself and my brother went down with you, remember as well, Evelyn?
Yeah. I kind of got left at the end as we were coming out, and there was no lights on, so I was kind of walking out slow. And there was one room that we'd just been in. There was about maybe 10 rooms down in the basement. The basement was huge, and
Mm.
there would have been a full staff of people would have lived and worked down in that part of the house back in the day. And I remember the guy that whose mother was in charge of it, and he was coming round, and I said, "There's a woman with keys following us about," and he got such a shock. He was like, "I'll show you her office. I'll
Mm.
show you her office," because the picture they had of her was with all the keys round her waist.
Mhm.
So I said, "Well, yeah, she's following us about." I didn't feel threatened by her or anything, but there was definitely something in the atmosphere down there. You just couldn't put your finger
Well,
on it.
that's why we were there.
Yeah, exactly. And as I was walking out, the two that had come down with me, they have gone out, they've ran back up the stairs. The young guy's walking in front of me, but he's already reached the stairs. I'm going along, just see. And I just felt something whoosh behind me. And when I turned round, the emergency light in that room had gone off. You
Yeah.
know, one of those emergency exit signs that was downstairs for an emergency exit out, and the light went off.
Wow,
They
yeah.
don't. They're not even run with the electricity in the house.
Yeah, they're on a I don't know,
I don't know what it is they're on, but they're not even on by there. But it was coincidental that I felt the swish behind me. When I turned around, it was just complete blackness. There was not even a thread of light. And I don't run. I wish I could. I used to when I was younger. And I had to walk out, and I remember the hairs in the back of my neck were standing up. And I thought, yeah, this would be a ghost hunter's dream.
I
I'm
know.
very
I
sick
have
and
one
think,
more thing for you, and it's just quickly because it's not really. Do you remember we were meant to go to the catacombs in Paris, but because of the terrorist attack, we couldn't go to this event, and that we were basically meant to go on. It was a masquerade ball, and we were
yeah,
meant to go on a boat underwater, under Paris on a boat, basically to get to this event. But because of the terrorist attack at the time, they moved it to the Champs Elysees, just beside the
what was the name of
Arc
that
de
palace that
Triomphe.
we went into?
Pardon me.
Palace in the Champs-Elysees that we went into where they held it. They
That's
held the
yeah. It was just a privately owned house. I can't remember, but what it was called exactly. But it used to belong to a president of France.
That's right.
Um,
The dungeons in that place were
huge.
very spooky.
I was going to say, do you remember when we entered? We entered through a kind of basementy thing,
Mm.
And then like the fancy stuff was all upstairs, but when you walked in the basement, it had definitely a similar vibe to some of
But
the other.
they really played on it as well. I mean, they had a young girl dressed up as a nun,
Yeah.
a heavily pregnant nun running up and down the hallway squealing. They had a young black guy that was a contortionist that he's held up in manacles in
You
a
remember he
cell.
was all bent over?
Oh my God, what he did. Yeah, he dislocated both of his
Yeah.
shoulders to get out of the manacles. Oh my God, it was awful. We're
Yes.
standing there with glasses of champagne thinking,
Oh, what the
what is
hell?
going on here?
I remember this is just as we arrived, but
Yeah, that was the start of it. Can't wait to go back. Have to go for another one. It was absolutely stunning. I would recommend anyone that fancies a masquerade ball, whether you go to Venice to Paris or you go to Venice to do it, do it. It's a wonderful experience. And everything about it is ghostly, everything about it is spooky. But it's kind of, that's all part of it. The
yeah,
costumes, the masks, the whole, they're doing it in places that they know are haunted,
yeah.
and
Plus
they're
the
really
weird incident
monopolizing on it as well. Well, that was, we didn't know until we arrived in Paris that we weren't going to get to the catacombs, and we
Yeah,
were,
it was very last minute. They changed it.
yeah, it
They're
was
on the
literally,
street.
so we were very disappointed when we arrived. But I mean, the palace that they did hold the party in was, it was fabulous,
Yeah.
absolutely. And the effort that went into the costumes and even the music and everything. I mean, it was worth every penny. It wasn't cheap, obviously. Thank you. But it was just so worth it. It's such an experience. I would recommend. It's an another worldly experience. That's the only way you can say it,
Yeah,
explain it. Another
it's
worldly
a really
experience.
different type of entertaining yourself.
Yeah, you're going back in time. You're
Yeah,
literally going back in time to medieval Europe,
yeah,
and they play their parts so well, and they don't come out of character all night. Do you
yeah.
remember the guy that was playing the Borgia Pope?
Oh yeah.
And we went in
There's
and we
all
had,
sorts of like
yeah, we went in
strange
and had an
characters,
audience.
weren't there?
Yeah, we went in and had an audience with him, and I remember Helen was with us, and she's like, what, I'm supposed to bow and kiss his ring, and I went, yep, it's theatre. Listen, we're going to draw it to, I think we've been on long enough now tonight. We're going to draw it to a close. So yeah, thank you everyone. And thank you for the people that took the time to get back to me on Twitter. I'm definitely going to look at your pages and see what stories you have. Hopefully now next week we have the link for Brian from ghost.net, ghostnation.net. So hopefully we'll get him on maybe next week or something. That would be fabulous.
Yeah.
And we'll be back with a lot more haunted hearsay. So yeah, thanks everyone, and goodbye from me and Donegal and Ben.
For me in Dublin.
All right, cheerio.